All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for a few real people out there, just like you, just like me. All right, before I get going, here's a really good hard rock band from New York City, believe it or not. Featured these guys a while back. Figured I was going to be talking about Van Halen and Extreme in this video. Station NYC. Um, if you want that sound, that hair metal sound, big hooks, big guitar riffs, generous guitar solos, right here, Stained Glass by Station. You won't be disappointed. It's really a surprising band. You would think here in the States there aren't too many bands that sound like that. But yes, a classic sound for sure. Also, if you want to hear classic radio, it's modern retro radio, modernretrofm.com, playing the music that nobody else will play by classic artists who are still putting out new material. Really amazing radio station. A lot of people are sending me positive feedback, and the station apparently is doing better. Not that they were doing poorly, but I'm glad that people are going over there and checking it out. People are also checking out the guitar work of Nuno Bettencourt on Extreme's latest work, which, quite frankly, is a breath of fresh air in a very boring, sort of pedantic and predictable musical landscape. And Nuno Bettencourt actually single-handedly restoring interest in really good guitar work, really great guitar solos. When the song Rise came out, I was more impressed with the guitar solo than the song itself. Extreme has dropped a couple more singles since then, and I'm more impressed with the songs, and I'm still impressed with the guitar work, but Extreme has always been a band, for the most part, that has written really good, catchy songs. And, they've got nothing to prove. They shouldn't be trying to reinvent their sound or anything like that at this stage. If anything, the throwback nature of who they are is what I think draws people in to their newer stuff, which, again, I don't think it's getting radio airplay. I could be wrong. It should get on modern rock stations, but it probably won't, which is really a tragedy. But a lot of people are comparing Nuno to Eddie Van Halen, saying that, hey, here's the guy who's picking up the baton and now he's moving forward with it. He's the heir in terms of his lead guitar work. And in a recent interview, I think Nuno does a good job of dispelling that, but understands that I think he has a responsibility to keep this going since there aren't a lot of people doing that. In a recent interview, he says this: I usually always record everything on my own. I don't like assistants or engineers around because they distract me. So that's maybe something he has in common with Eddie Van Halen in the old days. But as far as, being Eddie Van Halen's successor, Bettencourt replied with a laugh and said, gee, thanks for the pressure. Really appreciate it, man. I never asked for that, but listen, when Rise came out, I was getting some great responses on the solo and everything in general, and that felt really good. And he got emails from Steve Lukather, Steve Vai, and Brian May. Both, all three of those guys actually saying that the song was amazing. And then he started to read everywhere that he was the heir to the throne that Edward left. He said, yeah, that's gratifying, but there is no heir to the throne of Eddie Van Halen. Nobody sits on that throne. Nobody takes that throne. He says, here's why it's different with Eddie. When a great guitar player passes, you just move on to another, right? But in this case, Eddie wasn't just a guitar player. We're talking about a guy who changed culture and how we play guitar. He was like an alien coming in and screwing everything up so much that even the legends beforehand are like, okay, what is happening here? He continued, he says, I did feel a little bit of responsibility. It's not about me being the guy or some great guitar player, because there are lots of them, right? But I definitely felt that within my genre and my generation, after Edward passed, I had at least a little responsibility to set an example. And that's why there's so much excitement to share with this album. So it sounds a little bit like, even though he's pushing back on being compared to Eddie Van Halen, he also understands that this is a dying art. This is a lost art. There aren't a lot of people who are still doing this at that level. And I think that's why a lot of people were really excited when Rise came out and they listened to Nuno's solo. I mean, people were sending it to me and I'm like, yeah. And I know there are other much bigger, prominent channels that were reviewing the guitar solo and talking about it. And, Nuno shreds like nobody else. It's not just about shredding, by the way. It's shredding almost sounds like, hey, I can play really fast and make it somewhat entertaining and interesting. But I think a good soloist is also going to keep your attention musically speaking. He's not just going to bang on the guitar. He's going to do things that draw you in musically. You're going to hear things and you're going to say to yourself, wow, that was really creative. That wasn't just some guy trying to noodle really fast and show his dexterity on the fretboard. Nuno Bettencourt knows how to, do a melodic, interesting solo, and he puts everything into it. It's very inspiring. And honestly, with all the bands out there, I never thought to myself, Extreme, they're going to be the ones with this guitarist later on who just emerges as somebody who competes with an Eddie Van Halen. But lo and behold, here we are. And I think part of it is because the landscape is depleted. There's just not a lot of people out here anymore who appreciate the kind of guitar work that Nuno Bettencourt is doing. So kudos to him. So far, again, I liked Rise, but I like the other singles that have come out since. And I think Extreme at their core is a band that writes really good songs. And you drop Nuno into the song, and so now you've got this great song, and then you've got a great sonic landscape that people can be a part of as well. So again, looking forward to the entire album, which I think is coming out very soon. You can check out Rise, and I think there are a couple of other songs. Like I said, the newest song, which again escapes my brain because I think I listened to it on Friday, and last week I was not at 100% capacity to remember things. But check it out, because I think if it were 1990 again, it would probably be on the radio, getting lots of airplay. And this band, despite the fact that their music doesn't necessarily fit this doom and gloom template that we've had for 30 plus years, I mean, radio really ought to be considering this. Nuno Bettencourt, Gary Sharon sounding fantastic, by the way, just like he's always sounded. And I don't know. This is an industry, I think, at this point, folks, that needs to pivot. It just needs to pivot. We've waited 30 plus years. An old radio buddy of mine said to me, well, it's all cyclical. Really? This is a pretty long cycle. When's the cycle going to end? I mean, if melody is going to come back, if good songwriting is going to come back, if harmonies are going to ever come back where you're thinking to yourself, wow, this band vocally is great. They're a hard rocking band possibly, and they know how to play guitar. And the songs are singable. Oh no, you don't want the songs to be too singable, right? Because then they become cheesy and you can't listen to it. I don't know. It's a musical culture war, just like the other culture war. In any event, here's a band that has cracked that code. Station NYC, or just Station, depending on how you want to, identify them. This is called Stained Glass, came out a number of years ago. Very impressive. Very impressive. If you like Van Halen and Extreme, Station, they're a band to check out. Also, don't forget to check out Modern Retro Radio, modernretrofm.com. I don't know if they're playing the new Extreme, but if they're not, I'm going to ask them to, because they've played a couple of songs I've suggested. And Extreme, of course, a classic artist at this stage, started out in the mid-1980s. And here we are in the year 2023, still talking about Nuno Bettencourt and Gary Cherone. Anyway, folks, thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.